What's happening, guys? We're back in the shed working on the low cost today. So this episode, we're going to continue on from last episode. You know, last episode we got that panhard bar mount kind of figured out, but we didn't have time to make it out of steel. So we're going to start there, and then, you know, there's a couple things that we can button up on the rear suspension yet. And then I want to move on to planning out our roll cage, because that's going to be another pretty major part of the car. So we'll get that figured out. But before we do that, I had a request from one of you guys for an update on how the hood was coming along. So let's go take a look at that, and then we'll move on to the panhard. So here's the hood as it sits right now. The top is all pretty smooth. The body lines are not real good yet. I still need quite a bit of massaging on those. And I've actually had to move kind of where the body line curves up at the back. I had to move that forward about 3.5 inches because it would end up kind of right where our cowling cut was going to be. So not a whole lot of progress on this. You know, we're not ready to fiberglass it or anything yet, but it's getting there. We'll take a look at the front before we go. This has been probably the hardest part of the hood, is getting all these curves kind of smooth, symmetrical side to side, and sharp. So it's coming in. The shape's looking pretty good right now. There's still some waviness in the corners that I got to get out, but it's probably only a couple more days worth of work on this. So that's looking good. But yeah, that's the hood in a nutshell. So let's move on to some metal work. All right, so last thing we did last episode was this like cardboard template for the panhard bar mount. So the first thing we're gonna do this episode is take that template off, replicate it in steel, and get that baby tack welded on there. That's our panhard all done. Obviously, we're gonna come back in later and make all those mounts double shear, but we'll do that out of the car. So we're moving on. At the beginning of the episode, I said we'd button up some other things in the rear suspension. Most of those involved welding. We ran into a bit of a snag on that. This is my 16th inch filler rod that I use for just about all my welding. And this is the filler rod that I accidentally bought. And it's 5/32. And there's no way that I can weld with this. It's like, it welds way too cold. So, all our welding is on hold until I can get some more 16th inch filler rod. So, we're just gonna move on. We're gonna move on to the roll cage. I got a pretty, I think it's unique way of building that, or at least visualizing it. Let's go over here and I'll show you. All right, so I don't own a tubing bender. So the plan is to send out the drawings and get all of the tubes bent up and then shipped to me. But in order to do that, I have to have a really good idea of what the bends all have to look like. So we need to essentially mock up the roll cage on the chassis before we, draw it out. To do that, I've picked up some 1.5 inch black sewer pipe and some of these kind of long radius bends. These are all 90s, but we should be able to cut them and make them kind of whatever size we need. And we're gonna use this to mock up the cage and get an idea of shape and size and whatnot before we do up the drawings. This should be way easier than like drafting it all in SolidWorks. So I'm gonna grab like the seat form and the gas tank and stuff, everything that we gotta kind of build around, throw those in, and then kind of just shoot from the hip and make a sewer cage. All right guys, I gotta shut her down there. I know I didn't get much done on the roll cage, but I just realized that I got a dinner date tonight. So we'll end it there. We got the panhard mount in. I think that's a pretty big win. Now all the bars for that rear suspension are all in and mounted. We're good. We got started on this mock roll cage. Obviously it needs a lot of work yet, but we got lots of time. So we'll continue on with that next week. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next week. I'm out of here.